Hi, welcome to Talooli Trails. I'm Jeff, and today I'm reminded that it's early May, and May is a good time of the year for us to take a look in our backyards and to notice birds. You don't have to come out to the woods like Camp Talooli to see animals or to see birds, because lots of animals are actually pretty comfortable living near people. And here at Camp Talooli in early May, we have a number of our birds already nesting and laying eggs and raising babies. And it brings up a number of questions with kids. Things like how close to a bird nest can I get, or even what kind of bird it is, or even, what happens if the baby bird falls out of the nest. So let me take a couple of minutes and I'll try to help you with some of those things. Now I'm sitting here behind Duff Lodge, and there's the waterfront and the boating area right down behind me. And right here in Duff, underneath the back deck, there has been a nest on the rafters underneath the edges of the building for as long as I can remember, literally decades. And every spring, a bird will come in there and lay eggs in that nest. The nests are always seen to be made out of moss and tiny, tiny twigs. And the eggs are kind of pale color, and it'll raise two or more broods of eggs every year. But today I wanted to show you a little bit about what you can do to get a better look at bird nests without necessarily being a disturbance. So come on with me. So obviously it's important to show respect for the birds and not to bother them, not to keep them off their nest so that they could possibly damage their eggs. But I do think it's okay to get a little closer once in a while to see what it's all about and to enjoy getting a close-up view. I think this is some sort of a small flycatcher, and the nest has been in about the same spot for many, many years. So follow my finger and follow me quietly underneath the building. You see the nest right up in there? And the mother is on the nest. Now she might fly off, but that's okay. Now we can get a little closer to the nest as well. Let's try that. Okay, well, if you've been at Camp Talooli as long as I have, the tendency is for kids to think you know the names of everything and you know all the answers to all the nature questions. And I know a lot, but sometimes even I get stumped. So for example, in the case of the bird that we've just looked at, the question is, what kind of a bird is it? Well, there's a way to get that, and we can all figure it out. This is an app called Merlin Bird ID, and it's a free app, and it's a pretty simple idea. This is put together by Cornell, and you start it. You indicate where you're located. We're located here in Pennsylvania, New York at Camp Talooli. It suggests the date, today's date, and it says, how big is the bird you saw? Well, the bird that I saw was between sparrow and robin size. And the bird that I saw was basically what kind of colors? Browns is what I saw. And where did I see it? Well, did I see it in the water? No. Was that a feeder? No. It was pretty much just soaring and flying around, or maybe it was sitting on a wire. So by putting in these characteristics, it's now going to search what kind of birds are in this location at this time of the year that could possibly be about that size and about that color with that kind of behavior. And it's going to come up with some answers. So here they come. So Merlin says to me that for this time of the year at Camp Talooli, we could have birds in this range. And if I look at it, it really looks light color on the breast and kind of dark grayish or brownish on the top. It looks kind of like an eastern phoebe, a small flycatcher. And then it comes up with a description, and sure enough, boy, the color and the description is right. And right here it says, spends the winters southeastern U.S. and blah, blah, blah. Listen for it. Oh, it says that it likes to nest, let's see, under the eaves of buildings. And that's exactly where we saw this nest, under the eave of a building. So if I'm still not sure, I can go to sounds, and I can say, what does the sound sound like? And it gives me a recording, and I can compare that to what I've heard. And that is pretty much the sound I've been hearing. So I can say, yes, that's my bird. And so I've now actually given my citizen science data that at Camp Talooli we have eastern phoebes at this time of the year nesting. So I've become part of a greater database of birds. So there's a fun thing you can do with your handheld device. But let's go see if we can find another bird in camp. So we've moved from Duff up to the Nokomis Lodge, and right outside the building we've got some scaffolding stacked up. And this reminds me that although we think of birds as being, nesting in trees out in the wild areas, the truth is some birds like to nest, like the phoebe, right underneath the edges of our buildings. And robins have become so comfortable with people around that this robin chose to nest right here on the outside of the building, sitting on top of some of this scaffolding. And of course, that's going to make it easy for us to look at. So come on in close so you can get a really close view. Now we're not going to need to use our Merlin app to figure out what kind of bird this is, because we saw the robin. And if we look down here, it's very characteristic, nice blue eggs. And the nest itself is made of fine sticks held together with mud. And remember, the phoebe decorated its nest with green moss, but the robin doesn't do that. The robin is famous for using mud, so every bird is a little different. Now, remember, the robin seems to be okay with people because it chose to put its nest right here, and people are coming and going all the time. So I don't think we have to worry about disturbing the robin. We'll just walk away and we'll be okay. But maybe you've got a robin's nest hiding in your yard someplace, and all you have to do probably is look for it. So the mother birds have laid their eggs, and in a couple of weeks they'll hatch, and then they'll start to feed their babies. The babies will grow, they'll get feathers. We know that story, but one of the things that happens sometimes is that the babies will often get so big for the nest that they literally force one another out, or they'll fall out of the nest, or maybe the nest will get damaged. Or when baby birds are just about ready to fly and they're not so good at it, it's extremely common for us to occasionally see, early summer, young baby birds on the ground. And if the baby bird is covered with feathers or looks like it's almost ready to fly, then it's probably a normal place for it to be. And in fact, the truth is we probably should just leave it alone, and mom will keep track of it and continue to feed it on the ground. But if the baby bird is on the ground and it's really, doesn't have much in the way of feathers, and you can see where the nest is and you can get to the nest safely, then it is perfectly reasonable to carefully pick the baby bird up and to put it back into the nest, or sometimes to take a fledgling bird and to actually put it on a nearby branch. I think that the baby birds do put themselves at considerable risk being on the ground, whether it's part of their growth as a flying bird, or if it's just because they fell out, because cats and other animals might come along and eat them. So if we can get them up off the ground, that's a good idea. But this brings me to an age-old thing I learned as a kid, which is just not true, which is the idea that if you touch the baby bird, that somehow the mother won't accept it. It's just not true. I mean, even if you have stinky hands and the baby bird smells like you, the truth is your mom would take you back no matter how bad you smell. And the same thing is true with the baby birds and their moms. So the reality is that here at camp, it's not uncommon for kids to find baby birds. And our step number one is to leave them where they are. If they're in danger, well, maybe we'll try to put them back in their nest. But otherwise, they'll almost always be much better likely to survive if they're left with their parents than if we try to take them into our homes. So this has been Jeff with Talooli Trails. I hope you enjoyed talking a little bit about backyard birds. We'll see you next time.